In a world where our options for entertainment are endless, in which we have access to the highest caliber of media at all times, audiences are choosing more and more frequently to engage with the mundane. People are tired of not only seeing perfection, but also of being told that that's what we should be striving for. And this desire for a change in pace has led to audiences finding solace in channels like Dry Creek Wrangler School and Lena Norms and Madeline RG. Tens of thousands of viewers have pressed pause on videos with clearly thought through thumbnails and highly edited, saturated, scripted content in favor of consistently turning to creators who approach their platforms with realness and simplicity. In a world of too much, we're just looking for enough. And of course, public figures have made every effort to lean into these new trends. Celebrities are appearing more frequently in informal interviews like podcasts, and many are sharing more genuine anecdotes from their lives and posting less noticeably polished Instagram photos than ever before. And even businesses have recognized that superficial advertisements just aren't cutting it in the way that meaningful connections are these days. Audiences no longer want mystique and magic to dominate their lives. There's a craving amongst the general public for the unification of deep storytelling and rich commentary and a sense of real-world friendliness. And yet, although authenticity seems to be the way forward, it's also appearing to be a double-edged sword. If our trust in and love for unfiltered creators has never been stronger, then why and how are we witnessing the downfall of countless creators who are losing supporters solely due to their choice to express their authentic, genuine thoughts and feelings? And it's worth noting that, strangely, this love-hate relationship that we have with authenticity doesn't only affect public figures, it bleeds into the real world as well. Although we scream from the rooftops that people should express themselves and live in a way that feels right to them, we raise our voices even higher to tell people that they're cringy or weird or wrong for doing just that. And seeing this dichotomy play out in front of me time and time again has left me with one burning question. Is being authentic really worth it? So today that's what we're yapping about. We're yapping about the conundrum of authenticity. Let me snap out of my intro voice and into my real voice, which, yes, I'm sorry, this is actually how I speak. I'm from New Zealand, it's just my accent. I understand if you hate it and you can't stand it and you have to leave. Don't even worry about it. I will, I was gonna say I'll see you later, but I probably won't. So just have a great life. Let's get some mood lighting going. Great. Now, before it's possible for us to decipher whether being authentic is a help or a hindrance as far as our well-being in our everyday lives and in some of our careers goes, we first need to have some kind of grasp on what authenticity really is, which was surprisingly hard to nail down. The Oxford Dictionary definition of authenticity is simply the quality of being authentic, which made me authentically frustrated because then I had to go search for the definition of authentic, which was of undisputed origin and not a copy. Genuine. But this definition leaves some things to be desired because in order for us to assign the label of authentic to a human being under that pretense, we almost need to objectify people. Not like we need to tell them to make sandwiches and sit still, look pretty, but like in the sense that it requires us to think of a person as being a thing rather than being a person. Because I guess humans, even at the most basic level, are naturally authentic according to that definition because human beings come from an undisputed origin. That being, of course, the stork. And they are not a total copy because they borrow features from their mother and their father and their ancestors. So they really dig deep. Every single human being is a brand new limited edition version of a human being. So case closed. Right, this discussion is pointless because everyone is authentic and they simply do not have a say in the matter. They must be authentic. Problem solved, right? Well, it definitely could be that simple, but I don't want it to be. So I looked up the psychological definition of authenticity. And according to Psychology Today, being authentic means for someone to align their actions with their core values and beliefs with the hope of discovering and then acting in sync with their true selves. But that raises another question of what exactly it means to be your true self, right? Because it sounds so simple when you put it that way. Oh, just be yourself. But I don't remember taking the How to Be Your True Self class in school. Like, I understand what they're saying. I'm just not sure that I understand how to achieve what they're saying. So in order to really address the concept of authenticity as a non-tangible thing that we possess, we have to turn to philosophy. Yay! The good thing is that quite a few philosophers, like most of the ones that I found, were kind of in agreement as far as what authenticity is at the core of their argument. Anyway, so I just picked a fun one for us to talk about today. There are like characters, big words, it's thrilling. You'll have so much fun, trust me. We're going on the Jungian philosophy, individuation, roller coaster ride. All the kids love it. Now, Jungian refers to Carl Jung. Find the name Carl, I find it really difficult. If you're not familiar with each other, go and shake hands. Carl Jung was a psychiatrist, psychotherapist, and psychologist back in the late 19th, early 20th century. So it's quite the busy fella. I don't know what you do. You're going to have to introduce yourself. So you go ahead and do that. But even though Carl was quite busy, I feel like he was a big fan of he must have sworn by doing a brain workout of at least 30 minutes per day because, oh man, that guy really liked to exercise his existential dread muscle, as all great philosophers do, of course. And during his brain time, Jung gave birth, not physically but metaphorically, to analytical psychology. I almost said analytical thinking, but I think that was done prior to his existence. Analytical psychology is what he gave birth to, metaphorically. And according to study.com, which sounds trustworthy enough to me, analytical psychology is a theory of human personality and thought that takes into account the individual unconscious and its relationship to the collective unconscious. In analytical psychology, archetypes play a key role in helping people understand themselves and integrate different aspects of their personality. And this leads us to Carl Jung's beliefs about authenticity. We just took the scenic route to get there, I'm sorry, but I told you you'd love the roller coaster ride. But basically, Carl, or I feel like I should be proper and call him Jung. It's just that Carl is significantly more enjoyable for me to say. It presents a challenge, it's Carl. I'll call him Jung. Jung, it sounds wrong. Carl, he reckoned that our unconscious mind plays a very important role in shaping us as individuals. And he also reckoned that our unconscious mind is a pretty trustworthy cohort. So basically, his theory, it surrounded the idea that failing to recognize our unconscious thoughts and feelings was like trying to bake pancakes without sugar in an attempt to be healthier. Like, you'll get the same kind of concept of a pancake, but it's going to be missing something. You're going to know it's missing something, and you're going to have to slather it in like a double, triple helping of maple syrup in order to disguise like the incompleteness. So you're going to end up accommodating for that lack of sugar anyway. Well, can't ever use the pancake analogy. That's my analogy. I don't even know if it makes sense. But anyway, Jung, along with other philosophers that I came across, they kind of worked based off the idea that authenticity is neither static and unchanging, nor is it even able to be achieved without willingness and flexibility. And to explain this concept fully, Jung utilized 4 archetypes, which sound like they could make for a fascinating superhero crime fighting group. You've got persona, shadow, anima or animus, and self. Like, imagine you're being attacked and those 4 fellas come to save the day. Like, wouldn't you'd be walking on sunshine. You'd be glad you got attacked. Moving on. Let me explain to you what all of those actually mean. So the persona is what we'd probably be inclined to call a mask. It reflects the relationship between the individual consciousness and society. So right now I'm in my talking to a camera persona, which is, it's kind of sad that I have that. But we can lean into different personas depending on our surroundings. It essentially boils down social interactions to being a stage play in which we are pretending to be a certain kind of person. I think the easiest example of a persona in action, anyone can bring this to mind, I'd say, is a customer service worker, and that like personality that they snap into, the one that allows them to be like, oh yes ma'am, I understand that you are so incredibly upset because the pants that you bought without trying on don't fit. Thank you for telling me very, very loudly so that I didn't mishear you. And thank you for spitting in my eyeball while you screamed at me. It needed the lubrication. Let me help you. Instead of just saying, and ripping their hair out. That's an example of the persona. So the persona is beneficial to us societally. That doesn't sound like a real word. It sounds like a place in Italy. Italy is what it sounds like I'm saying. I think it's a word, though. I think you can tell what I'm saying, but it's beneficial so long as it doesn't override us, as long as we don't begin to overly identify with that mask that we put on. Because the mask cannot stay on forever, right? And the side effects of trying to superglue your mask to your face include intense pain, burnout, mental breakdowns, and a loss of direction in life. Your persona, in order to be truly helpful, has to be flexible. So to feel more at ease, a person should strive to be aware of their persona and to make a conscious effort to combine their authentic selves with their persona. You've got to add some sugar to the pancake batter to make it just to make it healthier in the long run. See, it makes sense. I knew it would. Now, Shadow is that grey hedgehog from Sonic the Hedgehog. Then the anima or the animus, no, I'm joking. The shadow self is a bit dark, as the name implies. And it's basically where we hide the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions that we're not really expected to express freely. Like if you're jealous because Amelia has a boyfriend and you don't, or like you think you're prettier than all the rest of your friend group, or you are really angry that someone bought the last donut right before you made it to the counter, or you know, that comment that you might be really tempted to make but you know you shouldn't. Like, Megan, I can't believe you spent $500 making an Easter basket for your dog. He literally won't even care. You are so stupid. You know, all the stuff that you're meant to lock away. And as much as sometimes thoughts and feelings should be inside thoughts and feelings, definitely, say it with me, class, we know this, repressing your emotions is not healthy. Yeah, we might need to practice that. I don't think anyone knew what I was about to say. And as contradictory as it might feel for you to accept, you know, that you identify as a nice patient person, but slow walkers that you're stuck behind on the pavement, oh, they just really get to you. Like, oh my goodness, they make you irrationally angry. As contradictory as that may seem, everything is a part of you, right? So regardless of how you feel about these parts of you, it's important that you are aware of them. And it's not that you have to give your worst thoughts and feelings like free reign over your actions. You don't want to, no, please don't. Imagine a world like that. It's just that you need to allow yourself to access them rather than avoiding them. Repressed thoughts and emotions can spell disaster for your social relationships because they can manifest as projection. And nobody likes a projector. Interactive whiteboards are much more modern. And this can be addressed, supposedly, by exploring why you think and feel the things that you do and pinpointing where those traits of yours come from. And then from there, you can spin them into positives, which benefits not only yourself and your mental well-being, but also that of everyone around you as well. So you'll be a little ray of sunshine to be around. Won't that be great? I need to move a little faster. The anima or the animus is another form of repression due to societal pressure. And I think it was the anima refers to hidden feminine traits, while the animus refers to hidden masculine traits. And it's often that the tendency to avoid recognizing these particular traits within yourself is drilled into you during childhood. Women might be told that they should be more focused on caring for their family than they should on career progression, or boys might be told that men don't cry, suck it up. And so hearing this rhetoric, it can lead children to reject these inbuilt aspects of themselves because they were taught to see them as weaknesses or defectiveness, when really it's all a part of them. And the idea here is that failing to embrace these things, rejecting these parts of you, it can make you spiral, right? It can be miserable. It'll make things worse. Whereas if you can address these things and learn to appreciate these traits within you, you end up striking a much healthier balance. And then finally, at the core of it all, Jung reckoned, is yourself, the self. He considered this to be the center of an individual, and he thought that it contained the ego, which he said the ego is what makes decisions for us. And so the self basically is where our ideal lives. It's the perfect blend of the conscious and the unconscious mind, and it's where the key to unlocking our authentic self lies. I knew we'd get there in the end. You trusted me, didn't you? So in learning to access the self by following the previous steps, it's all encompassing this is, an individual will enjoy less repression, more conscious control, and an improved problem-solving ability when it comes to identity. Successful exploration of the self allows someone to acknowledge the best and the worst parts of themselves and to integrate every aspect into this beautiful hodgepodge of aspects. You know, you mix your ugliness, your insecurity, your power, your passion, and you make this, well, you're a human then. Basically, the self is what Jung explained as being the final step in the process of individuation. And in completing these steps, he said that a person could achieve authenticity. So what was the whole point of what I just said? In the grand scheme of things, our authentic self is the person that we are at our core when we stop trying to trick ourselves into thinking that we are not that person. So we shouldn't act like that person because we actually are that person. Very insightful, right? It's something that sounds very simple, like I said, but of course it's not, because humans are ever changing. So the process of being authentic never stops. There's not one clear destination to reach and then you're done and you can wipe your hands of it. You're constantly doing it. I watched a TED Talk. Oh no, it sure is the mid-2020s. I watched a TED Talk of, it was Professor Hermina Ibarra, I think, and she spoke of the authenticity paradox. And what she highlighted was the confusion that arises in moments that she calls what got you here won't get you there moments. Pretty self-explanatory, but she said, in, simple terms, that when our authentic selves become ingrained in our personalities, we can become rigid beings, right? So we might be really good at customer service, like really good at people pleasing, but then we get promoted to manager. Now we're still people pleasers. We don't want to manage people properly. The whole team's in shambles. The boss is crying to you. Please get them under control. They're running around like a bunch of children. You're like, I can't. This is what they want to do. Right, I can't change. I am a people pleaser. But is that your authentic self? At this stage? I don't know. The thing is that can't possibly work, right? When who we are changes from situation to situation and also aspiration to aspiration. So it's inevitable, right? At some point, we come to a crossroads in which we have to choose whether we're going to adhere perfectly to being our most authentic selves or we're going to progress to a new exciting stage in life. And then a conundrum occurs. Because it's either you must choose to be less true to yourself or choose to remain stuck in place, foregoing your aspirations, which in turn also makes you less true to yourself. So where do you go from there? From there, you go to the realization that being authentic has to exist alongside freedom and experimentation and growth. And that, I think, is why we sometimes have this, I don't know, why so many people struggle to understand authenticity. Because it's not one clear-cut thing in the way it sounds to be. It's many things, it's contradictory things, it's things that change day by day. These are all authentic. So in the end, what's the best way to live authentically? I don't fucking know. Do I look like I know? But I'd say it's to live in the present moment and to try not to restrict yourself too drastically. And then what's the best way to judge if somebody else is being authentic or not? Well, that's easy. You simply have to mine in to their brain through their ear canal and have a look at what's going on in there for yourself. So it couldn't be easier, right? No, not really. It's kind of an impossible task to judge someone's level of authenticity completely accurately. Especially considering how difficult it is for us to judge our own levels of authenticity. Like, I'm in charge of this flesh suit and I'm struggling, so I don't need to be thinking about what other flesh suits are doing. It's a bit overwhelming. And yet, sorry, I have to take my pill. And yet, we make these judgments every day, right? Like, we consider certain content creators, businesses, and members of our community to be taking an authentic approach to life. And whether we're right or wrong in that consideration, we're still considering it. So next I want to talk about how exactly we kind of make those decisions and how the decisions we make affect the people around us, and also kind of how the people around us affect us. So that'll be great. The content creation, I think, is actually a very interesting thing to talk about here because it's an example in which change is oftentimes necessary for growth, I guess is a good way to put it. And that starts at the very beginning of the content creation journey, where a new creator, they might struggle to speak to a camera. They might be like, I feel like a weirdo, and they are. Or they might find it difficult to read from a script and not sound like a zombie. Or worse, in this day and age, an AI narrator. And as much as these traits are authentic to them at the beginning, with time and with practice, they will inevitably improve their camera presence. And as the creator presses forward on this journey, they'll find that their results are almost never stagnant. They have unwittingly joined a constant guessing game. They're always trying to guess how their content will be received by the algorithm, how it will be perceived by the audience. And to survive on a platform, a creator must have the ability to evolve. So it sort of has to happen that their content and their personality and their aesthetic becomes a tactical effort. Even if it is something that comes naturally to them, they still have to consider things. They still have to plan things. As strange as it may sound to say it like this, content creators are professional entertainers, and performing is a necessity. But it gets difficult because content creation, especially being an internet presence, it can just become so mixed up within your own identity. So exerting these efforts to cater to the public can make it more and more difficult to connect with who you are at your core. The spotlight effect is an egocentric bias that is especially prevalent in people with social anxiety, so this hit a little bit close to home. But it describes the way in which we tend to be convinced that other people are paying attention to us in excess of what's actually true. You know, like you notice this tiny little droplet of a stain on your shirt and you're like, oh, well, that sucks. Now everyone thinks I'm dirty and messy and disgusting and a freak who doesn't do their laundry, and everyone else is thinking, what's for dinner tonight? And it's fair that we think this way. It's undeniable that we are the main character in our own lives. It's only natural that we're a little bit selfish. Like, it can be hard at times to step out of our own shoes and realize that, you know, the same is true for everybody. Everybody's seeing life through the same sort of lens. You know, nobody really cares whether we were walking the wrong way down the street so we had to turn midway down the footpath like an idiot, or like whether or not we had bags under our eyes or not today. Nobody's thinking, they're thinking about themselves, just like we're thinking about ourselves. Obviously people can judge other people, but just because we care it doesn't mean that everyone else does. The more realistic thing to believe is that most likely they don't care. And this effect is great in some ways because it serves to make a contribution to things, to the world, to business meetings, whatever, to make them feel more powerful and impactful. Like, oh yeah, they loved when I said that thing. They totally gonna run with what I said. So that can be a positive motivator. It does have its negative effects, right? It can lead us to alter our behavior out of fear that we will surely be perceived negatively. We just know it. If we dare to speak up, or if we dare to be true to ourselves in this particular scenario, we're going to get roasted alive. But the spotlight effect becomes a little more realistic and also a little harder to escape when your career, or at least your hobby, does quite literally involve you being in the spotlight. It's very contradictory because, especially, for people in the content creation business, today's audience demands to see a creator's true self. Like, many viewers think that they would prefer for no stone to be left unturned. They want to know everything, every little detail. Like, they will insist to see your truest of true colors, only to balk at the first sign of misalignment or like something they don't like. They'll be like, oh, turn the stone back around. Ugh. It's just funny. It's almost as if we as viewers don't realize that we're making an impossible request because we want our favorite personalities to be entirely real and entirely relatable, which requires them to play a character, which makes them not entirely real and not entirely relatable. Parasocial relationships are so strange because they are the basis of the careers of these public figures, but they're also simultaneously, possibly, the single most damaging aspect of their jobs. Viewers see themselves in their favourite creators a lot of the time, which creates a bond that feels nearly unbreakable. Like, you feel like you're one with this creator, but yet the truth is that a single viewer cannot possibly relate to every facet of a content creator's life and personality. You can't even relate perfectly to your co-worker who sits at the desk next to you. Our lazy rivers just do not flow at perfectly paralleled paces. But that was great alliteration. I really enjoyed perfectly paralleled paces. And so the bond must break. It's only a matter of time before the viewer outgrows the content creator or vice versa. And to some viewers, that can really feel like a betrayal, like it stings deep. Beauty YouTubers, I don't really watch them, but I get this. Like, they run into this issue with members of their audience, right? Because their brand hinges on them being real and personable and believable, importantly. Their viewers need to trust their recommendations. They need to like their style in order to find value in the content, right? Unless they're rage baiting. And this all works very well for the creators who are talented in these departments initially. But as beauty tubers utilize these talents in order to grow their platform, partner with brands, expand their access to products, and earn exorbitant amounts of money, their success, oddly, becomes a glass ceiling, which I guess they can only break through by like starting their own beauty company and moving away from their platform. Because even if these creators remain personally authentic, right, even if they're the exact same person that you've always been familiar with them, from when they had 1,000 subscribers to 1,000,000 subscribers, they've stayed the exact same. Honestly, the size of their channel alone can chase away viewers who no longer feel like they can rely on them for that real, meaningful recommendation that they were looking for. And even just the sight of someone who is portraying themselves as being authentic, right? But you see them sitting in an oversized room with perfect hair and makeup done, and trying to sell you something in 4K footage, like, it all feels off. To cover a couple more niches, Emma Chamberlain, popular YouTuber, rose to immense success back in maybe like 2018. She had this very unique sort of like jumpy style of editing, and she had this relatable teenage girl next door persona. And for others close in age to Emma, it was a pleasure to tune in to watch Emma just living her everyday life in California, sharing her passion for fashion, shopping at the Dollar Tree. Is that what it's called? Yeah, the Dollar Tree, making PB&J sandwiches, But as Emma reached more and more viewers who really enjoyed being on her platform, watching Emma's vlogs started to feel less like being on FaceTime with a friend and more like getting a glimpse into the life of a celebrity. But Emma played things wisely because she never really changed her content or her personality outside of the standard maturation process that you'd expect a young person to go through. She was like 16 when she started making content, but her lifestyle changed. Her lifestyle changed drastically. She moved to LA, she got swept up in influencer culture, she was hanging out with these huge YouTubers, famous people, dated a musician. Now she was onto these new business ventures. She was hosting red carpet interviews. She started a successful coffee company. I mean, Emma was living a very impressive life, but Emma was still just Emma underneath it all. She's never seemed, from what I am familiar with, to have felt the need to show off her wealth to her followers. I mean, it was obvious, it was visible, but Emma's just continued to act like your average girl who isn't ashamed to burp or to swear or to be a bit messy. So in the years following Emma's introduction to fame and riches, she has somehow managed to maintain her average normal girl persona. The internet got to know Emma when she was 16 and she's just turned 24. And underneath one of her recent videos entitled, "I baked myself a cake so I wouldn't cry on my birthday," which, girl, I feel that, a comment reads, "I feel like this perfectly captures the 20-something-year-old essence, the confused emotional state, not quite feeling like an adult yet, but definitely not a teenager anymore either. And with every passing birthday you feel more mature and wiser, but you also have this lingering melancholic feeling that you can't seem to shake. Happy birthday, Emma." And that, it really interested me scrolling through these comments that some of Emma's viewers still felt as though they could relate to, and not only relate to, but also speak directly to Emma as if they were talking to a friend. Even though Emma is now a millionaire running amongst celebrities, she still feels like she's within reach. And I think that might be thanks to, in part, the pratfall effect. And this dictates that when someone that we perceive as being above us makes, say, like a mistake, a faux pas, or generally just does something to bring themselves down to our level a little bit, we like them more. A lot more. We like them more if they were above us and they brought themselves down than we do if they were at our level and they brought themselves down. Because now, you're below me. Ew, So things like Emma's normal conversations during her glamorous red carpet interviews and her like personalized, honest, open dialogue while she's sitting in her glorious house with her cat tugging on her robe, it makes her feel approachable still, and overall incredibly likable. It makes Emma feel like she's one of us, because she kind of is. Not entirely, but kind of. She's still a person. It's just, although members of Emma's audience are undeniably aware of her status, it's hard to miss, many still just appreciate Emma for who she is at her core. But others, though, have been turned away from Emma's content as, you know, they've progressed through teenagehood to adulthood. They go to college now, or they work full-time jobs, and she stayed right where they left her. As far as things go there, Emma kind of ran headfirst into a lose-lose situation that I don't think she could really avoid. Like, people liked her because she was relatable. So much so that her life changed to an extreme degree, to the point that she could no longer be relatable. Like, as relatable as she was, she could not be, like, someone on Reddit shared, they said, the problem with Emma Chamberlain is that she doesn't realise that people just want to see her doing normal, everyday rat girl things. We don't want to see her in her mansion, or at the Met, or doing fashion editorials. It feels so inauthentic to see her doing those things. I think because her personal brand of charm is so in juxtaposition to all that glamorous, unattainable, famous, rich person stuff. And a commenter wrote in response, it's very succinct, but very, nail on the head, hit the nail with the hammer on the head. They said, "You can't make a millionaire relatable. That would be inauthentic. Emma's version of authentic changed." But we can't pretend that Emma's situation is unique. This happens to a lot of celebrities and content creators. Viewers just tend to fall out of love with their favourite content creators when their version of authentic becomes our unattainable. Nina Roxas wrote about Hayley Pham, who was a popular beauty and lifestyle vlogger who rose to fame in her late teens around the same time as Emma Chamberlain. And Nina said, as time went on, her content slowly skewed in such a way that I just couldn't find myself coming back to it anymore. It felt as if she started losing touch with what made her relatable when she started spending $500 on luxury items. The challenges she did for her videos felt forced, and it was as if her initial humility and down-to-earth nature were being zapped away by the fame that she was garnering. And don't get me wrong, spending money and doing challenges like that are perfectly fine when you make the kind of money that you do running a successful YouTube channel. But instead of being the kind of girl that I could relate to, she started moving away from the things that made her fun, and it felt like she was beginning to churn out content just for the sake of it. I didn't know it at the time, but that's something I could sense even before I came to the realization, years after the fact. Soon after that, I stopped following her. We are built, just as human beings, to compare ourselves to other human beings. Whether we know the subjects of a comparison personally or not is really not important to us. And so YouTubers can affect the way that we determine our value and our worth as individuals, which is a crazy sentence to say. But think about it, right? When we're watching a small creator, it's easy for us to find aspects of ourselves in the person that we're seeing on our screens. We could watch them and we could think, they're smart, they're funny, they're kind, they love their family, they have potential. They're not so different from me. But then, they change. They grow and they change, and suddenly, you know, their careers are taking off at a sustained sprint, and we're still running on the exercise wheel, and we're like, oh, bye then. All right then. I see how it is. And then suddenly there's a contrast, right? We got the hamsters from G-Force versus just a regular hamster. You're the regular hamster, by the way. The creators are the G-Force hamsters. So basically now, we are quite different from these creators. I could just say things like normally sometimes, because as we perceive it, right, this is what our brains tell us, they're better than us now. They're suddenly, don't ask how, but they're smarter, they're funnier, they're kinder, they're more loving, and they're more talented. And in some cases, sure, that could be motivating, like, oh, well, if they can do it, I can too. But in other cases, it can be detrimental to our confidence levels, because this person that we see so much of ourselves in is suddenly successful, and oh, look, what are we? A failure. And so to rescue our self-esteem, we almost have to find something wrong with these people. Like, why do we not like them? Because if they're not successfully playing into the pratfall effect thing, they don't feel like a friend anymore. They don't feel like they're on our level. And so we struggle to continue to like them, partially, I think, because it comes at the cost of our own self-evaluation, if that makes sense. This is not to say that content creators are never problematic and that everything that we think about them is imagined. I don't mean to say that, but I do mean to say that we might tend to like nitpick or magnify their flaws to make us feel better. Like completely subconsciously too. We might be watching them and just be like, well, I can't put my finger on it, but this doesn't feel the same. I don't like them anymore. It's kind of natural. Being authentic, especially as a creator, it can split people down the middle. They're either going to like you or they're not. You become an acquired taste if you're not willing to bend yourself to fit to their mold. Take, for example, on this topic, the Dad Challenge podcast. The Dad Challenge podcast, also known by the much shorter name of Josh, which we're going to be using from now on for the sake of my sanity. He landed himself in a niche that would not only lead him to immense growth on YouTube, but would also allow him to provide value to the world and to protect the children of the interwebs. Namely, the children of family vloggers, children that are being exploited for money and for views online. And it all began with Josh covering, he'd done different, like parody videos and stuff like that. He's got a Taken parody called Take 'Em, in which he encourages a kidnapper, no, keep the kids. All they eat is fucking Doritos. Good luck with them. It's quite funny. But anyway, this whole thing began with Josh covering a family vlogger named Micah Stauffer. If you are familiar with the name, you'll remember that she and her husband, James Stauffer, they made the decision to rehome their adopted son because they were struggling too much with his mental conditions. He had autism, amongst other things, I think I remember, and they said he was too much, basically. And in his coverage, Josh quickly solidified his place on the internet as a concerned onlooker who could no longer keep his silence about the detriments of family vlogging. This was something he was very passionate about. It was something he had close to his chest. It hit close to home for him. He was an abused child, from what I understand, and also has 2 adopted children. So this was the perfect situation that he had things to say about this. And basically the way he does things is he reacts in real time to the content of these family vloggers, and he pauses frequently to insert his thoughts and his opinions and insights. And over the years, he's been doing this for a while now, and Josh has remained consistent in his disdain for parents who flagrantly disregard their children's right to privacy, and also for influencers who don't consider what it means to be good at their jobs, or even good people. He talks about that as well. And during this time period, he's cultivated an audience of people with similar values and interests who were excited to engage with someone who genuinely wanted to do good with his platform. And Josh really presents himself as being your average guy who is, as he claims, saying what everyone else is thinking.
Okay, you're gonna have to skip through it here a bit.
It's on the juice aisle.
She has the hands of an 88-year-old lady.
And I think these like down-to-earth, honest traits, I think they very much bolstered his growth. Kind of feeds into there's an effect called the similar to me effect. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's just people tend to prefer people who share beliefs and characteristics with us, right? If you're like me, I like you. But we also prefer people who share similar behaviors to us. And that's where things got messy, I think, in the case of the Dad Challenge podcast. I said I'd call him Josh. Why would I whip out that big long name? Now, the thing is, and this, a lot of people don't consider to be a bad thing. I've made a whole video about snark if you're interested, but Josh considers himself to be a snarker. The description of his show on Spotify, which I'd imagine that he either wrote or he approved, reads as follows. It says, Josh Barber hosts the Dad Challenge podcast on YouTube, where he talks mainly about exposing child exploiters by snarking on them. because they deserve it. But he also talks about a lot of other things. And snark is something that has become more and more prevalent in Josh's content over time, as far as my understanding goes. While he did throw in some petty comments amongst productive dialogue in his initial videos, over time, I think it just skewed more in the direction of snark. Just more and more of it has crept into Josh's content.
Is that your followers were asking, where's Huxley? And you couldn't delete their comments enough, so you eventually had to do a video where you sat on your $10,000 bed and started out the video with, this is the hardest video you're ever going to make. It's the hardest video you're ever going to make because it's probably one of the last videos you're ever going to make because nobody is going to listen to you after this.
Made it back. We're just in another box. We have water, but it's the pool this time, so there's no salt in our mouth. Which honestly, I don't mind, but Aura definitely doesn't prefer that part.
Like Josh and his viewers, this is only a couple things, but they now share nicknames for creators, like they call Matt and Abby
Twat and Scabby.
and then they have these, they really enjoy these running jokes that they have about the appearance and voices, laughs, lifestyles of some of the creators that they talk about, or most of the creators that they talk about.
So cute. It's like her forehead's also looking into the distance. Looks who's that? Looks it's like Kira's forehead. That's awesome.
They can be a part of every activity here.
What about the farting? They're part of that farting activity?
I get why they have the little crotch straps on these life jackets, because otherwise they just ride up to your face.
Like your fake boobies. Jumps in the water, poof, knocks herself out. Because do they float? Women out there who have fake breasts, do they float? Do you know what I mean? Are they floating? Flotillas?
And basically what Josh and his core audience will argue, for example, is that Ruby Frankie tortured her kids. So if Josh makes a shallow comment like saying she's ugly, then who cares? She's done egregious things to earn herself that kind of treatment. It doesn't matter. And I do understand that to an extent. Like, I mean, sure, go ahead and call Ted Bundy ugly. Do you know? Like, I don't mind. But for some, it's just the principle of it all that doesn't sit right with them, if you know what I mean. It's using a wrong to right a wrong is justifiable to some. Some people consider that to be a fine thing to do. Others, it just creates a larger issue in their minds. And I mean, sort of my take, but also just to explain further this perspective, aspects of someone's appearance and or their personalities are not unique to them. Like, yes, everybody is unique overall, absolutely, but many people share features. And I don't think that anyone deserves to walk away from a YouTube video with a newly developed insecurity about their belly button or their nose or their laugh or their weight or whatever, because this other despicable person has it, and apparently it's ugly, because Josh said so. And Josh has spoken himself about how he's lost some viewers for this very reason, so I'm not just like pulling this out of my nose. This is actually like something that's been a discussion.
And the only recourse I really have here is to just make fun of your stupid ass. And a lot of people get upset with me. Okay, and I understand why. And a lot of people like were with me at the beginning, now they hate me now because I made fun of something that likely they had. Maybe they have a club thumb, or they're too shiny, and they're like, well, hey, I'm shiny. And so they get upset because something triggers them, right? And I understand that. Okay, I am not for everybody.
Further viewers still I'm just listing the things I've seen, have felt that Josh has deviated from his initial well-intentioned mission following the success of his channel. Like, some have mentioned that he continuously pushes out videos about creators like Kira Sivertson from OK Baby, The Doherty Dozen, Matt and Abby and Gypsy Rose Blanchard, you know, real recognizable names, while glazing over the plethora of other family vloggers in existence, just maybe with like smaller platforms or maybe with less easy to make fun of characteristics. So some viewers I've seen have speculated that he's choosing to talk about these certain people specifically for the guaranteed views that their names bring to his channel. Again, I don't watch him. I can't say this for sure. I'm just saying what the dialogue is here. Others have noticed that Josh does sort of jump on hot topics even if they don't really align with his mission. For example, he made a video about one of the Doherty Dozen, the sons of the Doherty Dozen. I think he just turned 18 and he like crashed his truck or so. I don't know the situation. This is just what I've read. And people were saying that he did this, you know, despite his argument that the children of influencers should not have been forced to grow up in the spotlight. So how does that align with what he's preaching? He covers this here. Like, he has spoken out about this in his point of view, so that is helpful.
It's about the children, and the children are always the victims in these scenarios. Always. Now, some people are like, oh, you made fun of Alex for making these TikToks. We turned 18 years old and decided to go down the path. These children want to continue down these paths when they become adults. They're kind of fair game. If they're out there taking people's money for garbage content, that's just the way it is. The content I create covers the decisions and behaviors of the parents. not the children involved.
And perspectives differ on this. I mean, at the age of 18, you are legally an adult for sure, but do you shake off everything that you've been exposed to all your life and rise from the ashes like a phoenix right then and there on your 18th birthday? Not really. I didn't. I might have missed something though. And then more viewers still have expressed disgust at Josh's coverage of true crime and tragedy. He covered the Gabby Petito case, and I think there was something about he was spreading misinformation, or I'm not sure of the situation. I'm so sorry. But then also there was a recent death. This is very recent and fresh. An influencer's child passed away. They drowned in their backyard pool, which is just heartbreaking. But he was there for the scoop. Josh was there for the tea. He was like maybe asking moderators of her snark page, this influencer's snark page, for more details. Just a bit uncomfortable. I mean, like, comments have been made on the fact that Josh seems to at times like frantically search for these personal details that maybe would be better off left private, or, you know, haven't been made expressly public, so we probably shouldn't be digging into them. And he aligns these actions with the work of journalists, but I think for some members of his audience, the ethics are just, they're murky at best. Do you know what I mean? What it seems like to me is that everyone draws a line in the sand at a different place as far as how deep the coverage can go on these sorts of things before it becomes unethical, and some of Josh's viewers, despite their unwavering support of his mission, just found themselves feeling as though he'd crossed their lines that they had drawn in the sand. But Josh, judging based on his own explanations, he seems to give himself some leeway in the form of moral licensing. And moral licensing, it describes how a person, they might give themselves permission to be a little bit immoral, a little bit unethical, a little bit unproductive, a little bit of spice, as long as they've done something good prior to them displaying these undesirable behaviors, right? So if you earlier in the day prevented a car accident, you know, someone turned when they weren't supposed to and you were going straight and you didn't even honk your horn at them, you just stomped on the brakes. You were such a good girl. Then you might think, well, now I have the permission to hit somebody else because I prevented this accident. So when I cause an accident, it balances out. But from the outside looking in, this moral licensing behavior just doesn't always look so impressive. It can make a lot of sense in your head. I found, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. This is not looking good. Some of the complaints and comments that I read from disillusioned fans read as follows. One said, dressing up as people, making fun of their looks and facial features, using extremely degrading remarks about women, and downright hatefulness are not necessary to express your opinions about someone's YouTube content. Sharing personal info of YouTubers, asking others to dig for the personal info of YouTubers, and striking people just to get their personal address and or full name is just unacceptable. Another said, when doing a Gypsy Rose Blanchard video, you should probably know the law. Right? He didn't even know who Ryan Anderson, her ex-husband, was. I guess she has beef with this Ryan guy. Like, dude, you do commentary on this stuff. Commentary requires some background knowledge. I followed him for a while and I have enjoyed his videos, but this just got to me. He didn't know anything. I think I'm done. Another said, I used to find a lot of his stuff funny, and I don't necessarily feel bad for the people he talks about, although his comments on women bother me. And when he talks about other women's bodies or refers to leggings as labia pants or whatever he says, it really gives me the creeps. It especially bothers me when he snarks on Kira. I remember him specifically saying that if anyone decides to take their kids offline and deletes the old content, then he'll delete all his videos about them, but he justifies still talking about her for whatever reason. The other day he called out Deshawn, a kid of the Doherty Dozen, I think, for something that someone privately came to him and told him about, that Deshawn had said to a friend at school. He put it all out there for everyone to know, a private conversation that a minor was having with friends at school. And then finally, I used to love Josh and his mission, but the last few months I feel like he sprayed like a territorial cat. He's strayed too far away from his original plot. I don't like hearing him make fun of people's looks or other arbitrary factors non-related to child exploitation. One of the catalysts for me was his video on the influencer whose child passed away. I felt like it was so unnecessary and honestly hateful considering the circumstances. His most recent video on Tattle Life was too much. He constantly needs to comment on the liberal agenda and American politics in general when he doesn't live here, and it's so annoying. And he goes on and on about how he likes to make the haters mad. So over time, I've gathered, this is what I've seen, I've gathered that members of Josh's audience have found themselves becoming misaligned with his content overall, even though they do align with a percentage of it. So, you know, they appreciate his mission, but perhaps not his approach. But this, I feel like, almost comes with the territory of being a creator in the commentary niche. It's a niche that is rife with opinion. Like, you're asking for people to disagree with you. It's not the end of the world. But it also feels like there's a lot of, like, people expect you to be very moral, but everyone has a different idea of what moral means. Like, there was a smaller YouTuber, she's called Reilly Elaina, and she released a video recently in which she discussed, actually around the time that I released my video, about going viral. Nobody cares. In this video that she released, she discussed the strain that she was under trying to hide her true self from her audience, because whenever she let it slip, she got just a few comments about it, like a few, I don't really agree with this joke that you made or whatever. So she feared that revealing her true sense of humor in particular would lead her to fall out of favor with a chunk of her viewers. But in the end, when you appeal to everybody, you end up appealing to nobody, right? So while some viewers may feel blindsided when a creator reveals a fragment of their personality that conflicts with that viewer's personality or their morals or what have you, it's impossible for a person to be themselves and to also get along swimmingly with every single person that they come across. It's just like, it's not necessarily a sign of poor character, right? If somebody does not approach things in the exact way that you would expect them to. However, it can feel that way. When someone acts contrary to our personal beliefs, we can feel shocked and disappointed and even angry, like resentful, you know what I mean? Misalignment with somebody may lead us to consider them to be fraudulent, wrong, and fake. And it can make you say as much too. You know, while statements like, if they really cared about this, they wouldn't do that, or they wouldn't say that, they might make sense to us, they don't always ring true. Our judgments are not always accurate, right? And they don't always make true sense, although they feel right to us. Take JoJo Siwa as kind of an example. While kids, obviously, they loved her sparkly, colourful brand, adults often took the stance that JoJo Siwa's childish personality was cringeworthy. Great for business, but cringeworthy. And then when JoJo altered her persona to appear to an older, more adult crowd as she got older herself and she began to allow herself to swear and be provocative and all, wear black sparkly outfits instead of rainbow ones, adults still, overall, considered her to be cringeworthy. So I just found it interesting, right? When she pivoted to being provocative, we decided as a collective that she was childlike, even though she was claiming to be the opposite. We still didn't believe her, even though it is less unheard of for someone in their early 20s to want to explore more mature themes than it is for them to still want to act like 8-year-olds. Either way, it just didn't seem real. Like, still in our minds, JoJo Siwa was too old to be authentically childish, and yet too childish to be authentically sexy and old, and whatever else she was trying to accomplish. Karma. And now, JoJo was pretty vocal about her intentions and her inner thoughts as far as her persona switching, giving birth to the gay pop genre era went, and that didn't seem to change the outcome for her. The public didn't suddenly cling to every word that she said and every move that she made because she said, guys, I'm an adult now, listen to me. Guys, I'm gonna be a gay pop star, listen to me. But that made me think, is it ever helpful to be vocal about your intentions and your inner thoughts? Does that make you feel more real sometimes? I don't know. So that got me thinking. I'd say that TikTok stars are a good example, right, of people who begin their careers being as relatable as a human could possibly be, and then they do a complete 180. As quickly as you can say the words 3, 2, 1, take off, their page blows up. They're launched into celebrity. Don't you love it when you get launched into celebrity? That's so fun, right? What I'm saying is, like, one day you could be watching some unknown 16-year-old dancing alone in their bedroom, which sounds a little creepier than I intended. I mean, like, on your phone screen, like a video that they posted. But then, like, the next day, you could be watching them open PR packages, saying, oh my god, thank you guys so much for 1 million followers. It's insane. But for today's intents and purposes, I want to do a little bit of a deep dive into TikTok history because things move so fast on there. This is basically, this is one for the history books. The one and only Addison Rae, okay? Addison Rae shot to fame, I think in like 2019, and she was well known as being a girl that seemed sweet. She seemed like a sweet, like, girl next door kind of girl. But she also seemed incredibly annoying, and people thought that she was kind of blinded to the norms of society by her popularity. A video of her, like, doing a TikTok dance on the sidewalk comes to mind where someone's like, can I get a photo? And she's like, yeah, I just have to finish this. Yeah. Well. Sorry, I was going to try to do like Renegade, but I actually don't know the dance at all.
Can I take a picture with you?
Oh yeah, of course. Here, let me do this TikTok really quick.
Yeah, I'll get out of it.
But being annoying and being a TikTok dancer was like a death sentence back then. You could not be both of those things. People were not going to like you. As far as the general public was concerned, trash, garbage, hate it. But yet Addison was very, very popular. And so, of course, as you do when you're a popular TikTok star, Addison released a song. She released her song Obsessed in 2021, and propelled by her TikTok stardom, it performed incredibly well as far as numbers are considered. It did so well. The official music video has over 25 million views. She even performed a different choreography for The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. And I say it like that, she performed a different choreography because I don't think she sang a single line of this song in this video. But dance she did. Good job, Addison. Either way, no matter whether she sang or not, this video has over 7 million views on its own. So the song did well, right? Obsessed, everyone was obsessed with. No. Oh no, people hated it. Oh my god, they hated it. They thought it sucked and they thought she sucked. After being memed to the brink of death, Addison sort of fell out of the public consciousness for a while, and that very well could have been the end of Addison Rae. Addison Rae could have been done and dusted, but she wasn't gonna just give up. Are you crazy? Addison Rae? No, she's no quitter. So quietly in the background, Addison potted along, putting out songs that honestly flopped. They did flop. When I saw them, they had a couple, I made a video on them ages ago. Don't look for it, it's private. Had maybe like 30,000, 60,000 views, and I was like, these actually aren't bad songs, but nobody was listening to them because nobody cared. And this continued until about a year ago now, which I can't believe it's been almost a year, but that was when Addison released her song, Diet Pepsi, and she was subsequently crowned with the title of Up-and-Coming Pop Girl. Her songs that performed mediocrely that I remember from ages ago, they've taken off comparatively, and her subsequent releases have been met with reasonable excitement and praise. But honestly, Addison's sound hasn't changed that much. Like, obviously it's better than Obsessed, but
It's
not dramatically different. She's simply worked on her craft, she's honed her style, and she's come out on top. But how? What on earth has she done to change the internet's perception of her? Because that really it can be a death sentence. As soon as the internet decides you're cringe, oh, good luck. Well, for one, I think that the song is just listenable, which helps. Like, it's even playing on the radio down here in New Zealand, which, I mean, most songs that play on the radio in New Zealand are American pop songs, but like, when a TikTok song makes it over, you know it's huge. But importantly, I think Diet Pepsi just felt more naturally her. It felt more Addison. It just had more of that Addison in it. I don't know how to explain it. Like, even if it's not really naturally her, obviously there's a team behind Addison Rae, it's the feel. It's the feeling that matters from a listener's perspective, right? And she nailed it. She nailed that feeling. Because Obsessed, it felt like a contrived song. It felt like it was written for whichever TikTok influencer was willing to snatch it up. But Diet Pepsi, that felt like Addison Rae's song. That felt like a song that Addison Rae, aspiring pop star, was dying to release. And I think that made a huge difference. Like, comments on the Diet Pepsi music video, which by the way has over 30 million views at this point, they read, I love that she actually looks like she had fun filming this, and there's something so emotional about this music video. She's so beautiful and effortless, and she deserves all the success. So Addison Rae has flipped the public opinion of her on its head, and not by accident. Addison is driven. She knows exactly what she wants, and she's willing to do what it's going to take to get there. Her song Pham is a Gun, which came out probably a month ago now, it boasts the lyrics, you know I keep it real, I live for the appeal, and you've got a front row seat, and I got a taste of the glamorous life. Addison has worked out a formula. By painting herself as an authentic and honest pop star, she's got the public at her feet, she's got the mystique, she's got the magic, and she's got the real that everyone is starving for. And although she does risk coming across as unlikable by clarifying to her listeners that she's making music because she's a sucker for attention and because she dreams of living the shiny, wealthy life of a celebrity, the fact that she's so brazen about it honestly makes her more likable. Like, we understand the path that Addison Rae is on, and we're willing to support her along the way because she let us in on the secret. Oh, you want to be a pop star? Okay, Addison, I hear you loud and clear, girl. And I mean, I'm sure that's not the only key to Addison's success. I think people are also just in general enjoying the way that her music fits into the pop music landscape at this point. But I'd be willing to bet that the way that she's been marketed has helped hugely. But not every pop singer is openly enthusiastic about being a cog in the Hollywood machine. Jade Thirlwall from Little Mix fame, she recently, maybe within the past year or two, she released a song called Angel of My Dreams, which she's marketed as being a true sort of retelling of her experience in the celebrity world and being used by management and so on. And this song, it's got a very like bright sort of bubbly sound, but it's not particularly optimistic. It's kind of all over the show, and it doesn't abide by the rules that make a pop song very generic and very radio friendly and very easy to listen to. And yet it's become beloved by millions. People have sung her praises from the rooftops about this song, and it is a good song, I think. But I think that's just because people love it when pop stars bring themselves to their level. They love it when these people above them, they tell them how they're really feeling, the things that they're going through that are similar to the things that we're going through. We want to hear that, even though sometimes we don't. Like, it's confusing, but Jade nailed it. It's just that the balance there can be really hard to strike. So how are businesses supposed to navigate authenticity? This I have no idea. We've kind of already covered it because creators are businesses to an extent. They're in the business of being themselves, I guess. And honestly, I think it's all in the marketing, really. You've just got to be real on the nose. Like, if you can fake being real well enough, then you've earned your meal ticket. Good for you. A la Addison Rae, right? Not saying that she's like fake, but saying that she's got her public image down pat. She's doing a really good job right now with her music videos, everything. But funnily enough, the prevalence of authenticity in marketing can serve to make us more suspicious of these people that are claiming to be real and raw. It's almost Uncanny Valley-esque, like, you're telling me that you're real, but it seems like the undertone is that you just really want my money. That's the only real that I see here. Really money hungry. So can people or companies who are practically begging for your business ever truly be 100% authentic? I don't know. I have no idea, but I know they try. Like Duolingo, they feed into the Gen Z market by trying to appear as if they have a relatable sense of humor. And with companies like that who approach marketing in that way, there's always the sense that the marketer is your friend, that the social media person is like a fourth wall breaking entity that you can interact with, that you feel close to. It gives you something to cling to in this big corporation, something human and something real down to earth. Like marketers at real estate agencies, for example, they'll bring that same kind of energy by doing things like forcing non-dancers to try TikTok trends, or they'll use words like I, or the marketing person, the social media person, rather than words like us, we, the company, or the, brand talk, business speak. And then brands, of course, dedicate a huge amount of marketing spend to sending influencers PR packages or paying content creators for sponsorships. That's the word I was looking for. And all this works to an extent. It makes viewers feel like they're more involved, I think, so it also makes them more likely to open their wallets because they're like, I like these people. But I feel like the reality is always sort of looming over viewers, where it's like they know that the business's primary interest is making money. It has to be. I mean, would the Duolingo owl come to TikTok every single day to threaten viewers if it didn't have an app to promote? I think not. So it's kind of dangerous territory, because played wrong, authentic marketing, where you kind of grow that parasocial relationship with a company, it can begin to feel like manipulation, because in the end it kind of is, to an extent. And I mean, like, by definition, right? Like the Oxford Dictionary definitions, it says that manipulating is to control or influence a personal situation cleverly or unscrupulously, which I'd roll with that. I'd say that is kind of what marketing is to an extent. Like, you don't tell people, maybe you should think about buying my product. You say, you need to buy my product. This will change your life. You need my product. I don't know. Referring back to Nina Roxas, who wrote about her experience as a consumer of content, I think she wrote it best when she said, I'm sad to say that many of the influencers and content creators that I loved became out of touch with their own content, to the point that rather than creating content for the sake of their audience, it became about creating content to peddle and to push for products and sponsorship deals. It isn't necessarily a crime to earn a living, but it becomes a different story when you begin to use your influence and the trust that viewers have in you to sell products, and only sell more products. The thing about it is that viewers are a lot more perceptive than creators think. Although we know that content creators show only what they want to show, it's all about how we perceive you that affects our relationship with you. If we notice that you've been aggressively pushing a product and trying to deceive us into believing it isn't an advertisement, or if you come across as disingenuous, then that's something we'll clock immediately. So influencers and creators and celebrities and businesses as well, they all walk a fine line as far as authenticity is considered, right? But so do we in our everyday lives. I said I'd touch on this, so I will briefly. It's funny because, like I said, we're so encouraged to be ourselves. Just you speak your mind. You've got to be open and honest about your feelings. Tell us what you've been through. Tell us about your experiences. But yet, if you find yourself voicing these things to the wrong crowd, you'll be criticized, you'll be torn down in the least productive ways imaginable. Why did you even bother opening your mouths? Oh my goodness. Here comes the swarm of bees. Evil, angry bees. And this thought sprung to mind, how this all interconnected, when I was on the Name Nerds subreddit. I always strive to make the best use of my time. And I came across this thread. It was entitled, Convinced to Change the Name That I Loved. And the poster here, they wrote, I loved the name Milo Antonio, but my husband hated it. I compromised with Miles, but I'm not in love with the name. I really had my heart set on Milo. Everyone else said it sounded too much like a pet name or a malt beverage or not appropriate for naming an adult. I can't help but feel a little heartbroken and disappointed that I let myself be talked out of a name that I really loved. My little one is here and the birth certificate is filled out. I adore him, but I still see him as Milo and not quite Miles. And I was interested, okay, I was hooked. I scrolled onwards. I was expecting to see some advice regarding nicknames. Maybe you could just call him Milo. You know, some advice regarding postpartum emotions and hormones. Oh, it's normal to have these big feelings, or, you know, maybe some quips about adapting to parenthood. Oh, you'll get used to him. Oh, you must be pretty stressed and pretty tired right now. But instead I read this. It just said in different ways, but sort of with the same perspective, the same sentiment over and over again. Commenters wrote, you shouldn't have become so attached to a name. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks except your husband, who doesn't like it. He isn't wrong for not agreeing with you. You could call him Milo as your nickname for him, but the tone makes it seem like you're taking this too personally. Heartbroken seems way too strong for not unilaterally getting your way. And while I don't disagree with the sentiment at the heart of these comments, I just don't think the harsh tone was necessary to approach with. Do you know what I mean? Like, it seems as though some readers were just immediately turned off by this display of authenticity because I guess it didn't come off as like likable. It wasn't likable or forgivable enough for them. It wasn't authentic in a nice, pretty way. And I think that really highlights how we can say one thing and mean another thing at times, right? Where it's like, be like that. Oh, no, but not too much like that. And only when I ask you to, please. But how is it possible to be authentic, as is so heavily encouraged, while also trying to abide by arbitrary rules and preferences? It's not, right? It's not possible. I don't know. It's difficult. But the thing is that reactions are so entirely personal. Like, sometimes you don't think something is a big deal, right? But it's the end of the world for someone else. Or maybe you adore something, you adore this thing, and someone else thinks it should be destroyed. They hate it. It's just, overall, I don't think that it's worth it to sink a lot of effort into attempting to control other people's perceptions of you, because the truth is, that's not really possible to do 100% of the time, unless you're willing to live your life in the skin of a chameleon. How receptive people are to your authenticity could depend on so many personal factors, things that are personal to them, their own insecurities, their familiarity with you, whether or not they had breakfast that morning even, maybe they're a bit hangry. Say, for example, if you think that someone is doing better than you in life, right, they have a higher paying job, you think maybe they're a bit like snobby, and you hold some disdain towards them because of that, and then you see them trip and spill coffee on their shirt, what an idiot. You might giggle with your friend. You might whisper, oh my god, they're so stupid and so clumsy and so worthless. Lol, loser. But then if your friend went on to spill coffee on their shirt, like maybe they were laughing so hard about this guy spilling coffee and they were like, oh, whoopsies. Well, then that's different. Okay, they're normally perfect, but they just made a little mistake. Everyone does that from time to time. It's okay, alright? Nobody pick on my friend for spilling coffee on her shirt. Just laugh at this guy over here. And this is an example of the halo and the horn effects working double time. Basically, it makes us think that our positive or our negative impressions of people entwine with their traits, when in reality, you know, the person that we dislike might have been tripped by a YouTuber filming tripping people holding coffees and then buying them a more expensive coffee so that nobody has a reason to leave a hate comment prank. So that would be totally unfair to laugh at them for going through that, right? While our friend might just be clumsy, just a silly little guy, and that could just be the reality, but we don't want to admit it because, no, we really like our friend. We don't like that fella over there, so he's probably stupid. Our friend's alright though. Something I found really interesting in terms of, there was this theory called the looking glass self. It was coined by Charles Horton Cooley in 1902. And the way things have changed in regards to like the invention and the prevalence of the internet is just so interesting to me. So this relies on 3 steps. The looking glass self. They said the imagination of our appearance from another person's perspective, the imagination of a person's judgment of us, and an emotional reaction such as pride or shame based on the judgment attributed to the other person. I think I found that on Wikipedia. But in today's day and age, there's less of a need for imagination, isn't there? We are subjected to point-blank comments online about who we are, what we say, and what we do, more so than ever before. We don't have to hear it through the grapevine. We don't have to spread a little rumor. No, it's right there in front of our face. Unless you associated with someone who was very judgmental and very blunt in your real life, you probably wouldn't have to see comments about yourself so much, right? Like if you said an opinion that someone didn't agree with, the response most likely in real life would not be, well, you're just a stupid, uneducated idiot. Did you even go to school, you stupid, uneducated idiot? Probably not. You probably worked on your parents' farm and they didn't let you go to school and there's no legal requirement anyway. So, sorry, I really got, I was trying to get real deep into the mindset of like an angry commenter that was born in the 1850s. But nowadays, our peers can not only develop very easily a perception of us, just from like limited knowledge about us, limited interactions, but they can also vocalize it directly to us. And that, I think, that commentary on your inner world coming from the outer world can begin to affect your output, because whatever people think we are, whatever people tell us that we are, that's what we become. So your level of confidence and self-esteem and your understanding of your own identity, it can start to exist on a very volatile sliding scale under conditions like those. Enter the panopticon effect. Wikipedia explains that the panopticon effect is a design of institutional building with an inbuilt system of control originated by English philosopher and social theorist Jeremy Bentham in the 18th century. The concept is to allow all prisoners of an institution to be observed by a single prison officer, without the inmates knowing whether or not they're being watched. So imagine if, for example, you were forced to walk around with a webcam on you 24/7, and this webcam that was attached to you would live stream footage just randomly throughout the day. And you know that these live streams happen, but you just don't know when. Well, this would likely lead you to act as if you were being broadcasted to an audience on camera all the time, right? And I think that being chronically online does something similar in people's brains. It can make you feel like you're standing on a soapbox just being swallowed by a crowd constantly. And how can you possibly self-regulate appropriately with all of these factors at play in the background? Honestly, I don't have an answer for that. I'm leaving a lot of questions unanswered here. But I do wonder if there's an answer for my question. Is being authentic worth it, really? And I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of subjective. Like, how do you want to live? What's the most enjoyable way of life for you? Because I guess at the end of the day, authenticity is all subjective. Like, you might be living your complete and utter honest truth, but that doesn't leave it any less open to interpretation, does it? But I think that the saying your vibe attracts your tribe rings true here. Like, it just makes more sense to be yourself, and therefore surround yourself with people who appreciate you for who you are when you're being yourself, and to take the people who don't appreciate you for who you are with a grain of salt. The thing is that human beings are complex, and it's unlikely that anybody is ever truly 100% authentic. I mean, we're all taught social norms even. That encourages us to suppress our natural responses to certain things. Like, you're told not to grimace and say yuck, even if the food that someone has made you has tomatoes in it, and you hate tomatoes. It's very rude to say that. Suck it up and eat the tomatoes. Do you know what I mean? This is for the sake of unity and cohesiveness, and whether we like it or not, it does serve its intended purpose, but it's not authentic. But then if we have a desire to abide by those rules, is it really inauthentic to do that? I'm confused. I don't know. But either way, I think that you should strive to be as authentic as possible. Just do what feels right to you. I guess that's what the whole essence of being authentic is, right? I mean, unless you're like authentically a serial killer or something like that, then you should probably get help and don't do that. But to drive home this idea that authenticity is king, I'd like to revisit some of the creators that we spoke about, because I painted a bit of a grim picture about the state of their careers earlier, since their initial audiences ran away like skittish cats at the first sign of change. But realistically, they're all doing very well for themselves. Like, thanks to Emma Chamberlain's ventures in business and fashion, the departure of those former audience members hasn't sunken her ship at all. A rotating door of viewers continue to crowd around to see what Emma does next, while Emma's first supporters just reminisce about the times that she has since evolved from, and so have they. And Hayley Pham has become an avid reader. She's now a booktuber by trade. She's even written and released her own book, and she's currently traveling around all 50 states in 50 days with her husband Ryan Trahan, raising money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which is great. It was when she found that her vlog and her lifestyle content was falling out of favor with her audience, she chose to hone in on her relatable hobby of reading, and in sharing her passion for the written word on her platform, she's found her people, many of whom aren't even familiar with her from her early vlogging days. They just know her as the book girl. And Josh, or the Dad Challenge podcast, he has 300,000 subscribers, and almost my camera died. Oh, for God's sake, I can never make it through a video. Sorry, I'll just put up a really big photo of Josh for the rest of this. He's got 300,000 subscribers, and he's reached even wider numbers with his anti-child exploitation message. So he's done some real good for the online world and for real children, and he's changed some viewpoints, right? He's changed some lives. Josh's unique approach, he's said that people have reached out and told him this, that, you know, despite the lack of enjoyment that some viewers find in watching it, it does actually reach some people that might have otherwise not have been quite as receptive to criticism. Like, they enjoy his snarky tone, and his snarky attitude is celebrated by the majority of his audience. So it's an acquired taste sort of thing. It's just that viewers that find both value and entertainment in Josh's content will continue to support his channel, while others will fall to the wayside to settle into a space that feels like a better fit for them. And Reilly Elaina, she came to the conclusion that putting on a mask to disguise her true self from her audience wasn't going to cut it forever. Whether her viewers liked it or not, she had to march to the beat of her own drum. And Reilly, thankfully, she ripped that band-aid off while her channel was still young and still growing, and she vocalized her thoughts to her audience, and they'll be receptive. There may be some viewers that voice their disappointment and, you know, head towards the exit sign, but Reilly will still have her core audience that does align with her. And in the end, those are the supporters that you really want to have by your side anyway. I think the message at the end of all of this, the one that I've come across anyway, I guess, is that nothing worthwhile in life comes easily. I mean, even something as simple as being yourself comes with a price to pay. So the question that remains is, are you willing to pay it? I cannot believe my camera just doesn't quite make it there. I just yap for a little bit too long. It can't hold on. Or maybe it just doesn't want to. I'm so sorry. But I had a great time yapping about this. This was something that I was really, really excited to talk about. So I feel so glad that I've been able to get it out now. This video, I couldn't script it fast enough. I was like, can I get this done so that I can start yapping? So I hope that you've enjoyed your time here as much as I have. And I also hope that you're having a lovely, lovely day. I hope that you're doing well in life. And I hope that you're taking care of yourself. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. I suppose I might see you in my next video and I might not, but hopefully I will. All right. Bye. Thank you. Bye.